Yeah, Iran's not so secret plan to escalate the war. Big Wall Street Journal story out this morning, online yesterday, and a very scary one. Anyway, we welcome back to the show General Jack Keane, Fox News strategic analyst, great friend and mentor to us on all these things. You know, General Keane, there's so many things in this article that really are troubling. But one of the things that you have said time and time again is that the long ceasefire, which wasn't really a ceasefire, but it sort of ended the war, or slowed the war down. Iran used that to rebuild, to rearm, to rebuild, to get their missiles up and going again. I don't know what they did on nuclear. You said that so many times. From their standpoint, the ceasefire was a benefit. And this article makes a lot of discussion of that, and then goes on to say they want to cause trouble in the weeks and months ahead. How do you read all this?
Well, I take that article at face value because I sense myself as we get closer to the midterms, and they do focus on what's happening in the United States. Like a laser beam, to be frank about it. They paid lots of attention to it because they fundamentally understand war is about a test of wills, and they want to weaken the administration in terms of the political support and resolve of the American people here. So if they can demonstrate, as we get closer to the midterms, that the war isn't being managed properly because Iran is taking offensive action, then they believe, in their minds, there's a good chance that the Democrats will take control and maybe stop funding the war. Is kind of where they're coming from. I don't like to get into politics, but I'm thinking through where they are. And a number of things have emboldened them, Larry. Number one, and you mentioned it, we went to a ceasefire on April the 7th because the Iranians were throwing a fig leaf out there that we would negotiate with the Americans over the Straits of Hormuz. Well, that hasn't happened successfully, but nonetheless, they got the ceasefire. And that emboldened them. The second thing is interesting is because they threatened allies and partners, Gulf oil states, oil and gas infrastructure, and they damaged some of it. And they threatened to do more of it if the United States and Israel return to major combat operations. So on 3 occasions that I'm aware of, those very partners of ours, the Gulf state oil countries, dialed up our president and told him not to do it. And the Iranians are very much aware of that, and in their minds, that had a payoff. And then the other thing with them is this is a diabolical, tyrannical regime that's committed to its ideology. You and I have talked about this, and you got to look at it from their perspective, not just ours, in terms of all the economic impact and how adverse it has on them. And here's a perspective that they have that's similar to Saddam Hussein. Remember Desert Storm? He had his army, he took over parts of Kuwait and the oil fields, threatening Saudi Arabia, and we formed an armada in front of him. We deployed hundreds of thousands of troops. There was no doubt that we were going to push him out of Kuwait. And everybody, to include myself, said, well, he's not going to let us destroy his army. Certainly he'll withdraw. And he didn't withdraw. He took the blow. Now, why did he do that? Well, we found out in his mind, he survived it and was able to recover from it. And in his mind, that was a victory. The Iranians are in very much the same place. If they survive this and they're able to rebuild and recover, they believe that's victory, despite the tremendous loss economically, despite the tremendous loss militarily, and to a certain degree, politically as well.
But this article...
So they don't think like we think.
I know. I agree. And you've said that a lot of times. But this article makes it very clear. I mean, the article basically says the United States was naive not to expect them to attack the Strait of Hormuz. And second point is that our own negotiators seem not to understand that although a lot of people were wiped out, a lot of the original officials of the IRGC and others were wiped out, including the Ayatollah. The fact is, they had another group of hardliners, super hardliners, that came in. They had no intention of surrendering. They had no intention of giving up. And the other point, I mean, it seems like the intelligence broke down. And the other point is, just recently, our negotiators are saying, well, gee whiz, we're negotiating with them writ large, but the president doesn't agree. I mean, I don't understand any of this stuff. There's some, I want to talk in a moment about some decent news, but I didn't understand any of this stuff. It's very confusing, and it seems to some extent that we were not at the top of our game in dealing with Iran.
Well, in dealing with Iran from a military perspective, I think we're very much on top of our game. But we stopped it at 38 days. We had about 14 days to go. And we got a little seduced by them because, you know, they were talking nice, reasonable.
Right.
But that's what they've done with other administrations as well. For the life of me, I don't understand why people thought this was new. This is old tactics on their part. Hardliners in control, negotiators reasonable, trying to get concessions out of us because they're working for the hardliners. That's kind of their pattern line. Yes, the Iranians are dead set on recovering here and rebuilding what they lost. And what they lose is going to be significant. And you know where I'm coming from. I think it's a combination of what Secretary Besson is doing, which is eye-watering work here, very good. The naval blockade, excellent, and military power, all of that coming together, and I believe we bring these guys to their knees once and for all.
Well, I will say this. I think, I don't know if President Trump received poor information or not. I don't know that. But if the satellites show that they are rebuilding nukes, for example, but that they're rebuilding all their missiles and their missile strikers and so forth, I mean, I don't think he'll have any of it. I think he'll resume the bombing. He has said that, and I think the Iranians, one mistake they make is they underestimate President Trump's own determination to stop them from being the terrorist nation in the Middle East and the world and their nukes. I mean, I don't, whatever the negotiations, those seem to be out the window. I don't think, you know, he won't stand for it, General Keane. That's the way I look at it.
No, I totally agree, Larry, and I've said it before. The Iranians are about to miscalculate, and they've done it before with this president. And they believe that being more aggressive, being more violent to create the image that this war is not working right and is going to cause him political damage, he's not going to stand for that.
Yeah, that's right.
They go after oil infrastructure of our allies. They go after U.S. bases. They start making consequential attacks again in the Straits of Hormuz. He's going to deal with them. And I think this time it'd be very consequential. It just won't be a one-off attack. I believe they'll go after everything that they value. What do they really value? What they value the most is all of their oil and gas infrastructure. And I think that's very likely that we would take that down once and for all.
Well, one interesting wrinkle in the papers today, sir, people are reporting, these are Iranian analysts, one of them it was in Iran for many years. Anyway, the idea is Iran is down to zero oil exports, zero. Now, I had seen, you know, at the peak they were producing 3.5 million barrels a day. They were down to 1 million, then 500,000. These reports suggest they're not making any cash at all from the sale of their oil. That's how good the naval blockade is, and the other sanctions put in by Treasury man Scott Bessent, who's the best wartime Treasury Secretary. So that's an interesting, you know, at some point they can't pay their bills, they can't pay the army, they can't pay the regular army, the IRGC army, they can't pay anything. That's going to be a problem, and probably not too far away.
No, there's no doubt about that. I mean, the pressure on a regime will mount for sure. The only thing I say in that, we cannot underestimate their ability to suffer and take this on as a mantle. And they don't care very much about their own people, that's for sure. We've seen plenty of evidence of that. But when it starts to get personal with them, in terms of there's about 200,000 people involved in sustaining the regime as part of the IRGC infrastructure and the organizations that sustain it. If those people in those organizations are getting to the point where they're not being compensated, enter the CIA and the Mossad.
Yes, yes.
Because this is something that we can manipulate.
Yes.
And we can put money in their pocket.
Yes.
and get information from them and undermine the regime. I'm assuming we're already doing things like this, and another list of imaginative things we can do with a regime that's under pressure.
Covert operations, like the
Absolutely.
Reagan. It's Mr. Trump's version of the Reagan doctrine back in the Cold War. I think that's a terrific thing to look forward to. And I think we're going to button down. I mean, Navy blockade stays. The sanctions are going to get tougher, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, General Keane, thank you, sir. As always, we appreciate your wisdom on all of this.